Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyles, passion, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong, I'm the host of the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, and today is episode number 5, and what's even more exciting is it's the first guest episode, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I'm so excited to finally bring it to you guys, and I want to take you through a quick summary of what's in store in today's episode. So our guests today are EllenaGrace and Avince. Now, these two are a dream team couple out of Jacksonville, Florida, United States, and they both come with a range of amazing talents spanning between videography, photography, and blogging, and they both have some amazing and wonderful ambitions of their own, but also together. And what I have loved about them so much is how they leverage each other to thrive individually, but also to grow as a couple and their ambitions and their passions and all that jazz. It's an absolute pleasure to have them here, and I'm so excited to have them as guest number 1 for the podcast, and it's been a very long time coming. They've been an awesome part of the journey so far in helping create content, sharing videos, and even creating some of the pictures you've seen on the Instagram as well. It's an absolute pleasure to have them here as guest number 1, and it's super exciting. I'm excited just because this is finally happening. I'm having guests on the podcast, and I know a lot of people have been keen to see who the guests will be, and I'm proud to be able to say that these guys are number 1. And the focus of today's episode will actually be talking about taking action, setting ambition, and starting a journey, but also we're going to dive into, who they are, what they've been doing, and what they're trying to create for themselves. And the intent here is to give you guys a bit of an inside view, and also to gain some insight of what it's like to be able to create content and starting that journey from really early days in, I guess, their journey for where they want to be. And, I think so many of us can learn from this. I know there's some really good stuff in this episode, so make sure you buckle up, get comfortable. Now, you have a couple of options here. You can be watching this on YouTube, and there will be some visual experience for you as well. Of course, you'll get to meet them face to face and just some video overlay from their own content. But of course, if you're listening via the podcast, audio only, whether it's Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or wherever it may be, that is completely fine as well. There'll be plenty of show notes that you can see in all the descriptions. And of course, you listen how you want to listen. Let's not wait anymore. Let's get into the podcast. Welcome, EllenaGrace and Avince. It's so exciting to have you both here on the podcast. I know it's been a long time coming, and you've been part of the journey for Furry and Further Your Lifestyle for a while now. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us. I'm so excited to be here.
It's my pleasure. It's all my pleasure, right? And I want to jump straight into it and just take it straight off. And when I first discovered you guys, that was via Instagram, and I had seen your content. I was intrigued by the quality of the content you were creating, and not just with the pictures, but it was the entire visual experience, whether it was in pictures or videography, but also how you captured a story. And of course, you both were doing this together. So I think the big question that I have, and for probably everyone else, is, how did this all come together, like finding each other and then starting to create content together as well?
Okay.
I'll let you take it away.
All right. So we both love to just create content in general. We've both always, it started off as just like something that we would just do for fun, at least like on my end. And so I was always interested in like photography, like doing modeling photos, videos, and I kind of started doing that like actually before I even met him. That's like making content together is actually something that we bonded over like in our relationship. And so I would just mostly do it for my family and my friends, kind of just doing like, family videos here and there, little vlogs, but I would kind of just keep it to myself. And then so when we met, like, he was like, oh, like, I also like to document things too. And it's kind of funny because my family and my friends would always make fun of me because I'd kind of be known as like the girl who always had the camera on, or like who's always like recording everyone. And then everyone was like, I think one of my friends said, if you date someone in the future, like, they better love cameras just like you. And I'm like, oh, ironic enough. He does. So yeah. And then like I said, I would mostly just do it for fun. But then when I would make my content and do videos and stuff, I would show Vince, and then he'd be like, hey, like, I think you should actually, like, post these. Or you should start, like, doing some sort of creativity around that. And it kind of got me thinking. I was like, really? Because I kind of would just be someone who would, watch other YouTubers or other creators and just be admired by them. And, like, I didn't realize that what I was already doing, like, I could actually turn it into something. And when I really sat to think about it, I was super passionate about it. And his creative work, we just kind of would bounce off of each other.
Yeah. So
like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
So actually, to tag along to her side, I have been dabbling into anything camera related and all that jazz since I was actually 10 years old, but I didn't actually get into it till 13. And I got inspired, of course, when YouTube was blowing up back in the day. So I started just making home videos back in middle school and then high school, and then eventually finding more inspiration as I got older and had more opportunities to travel. In 2017, that's when I picked up all my first gear. So this is actually when we were already dating, but I was already glad that she was already into video photography. So it was pretty easy to get along, but we had those patches where we had to communicate better.
That's really cool, right? I mean, it's always nice to know that your partner or girlfriend or significant other is got the same passions as you. But you both kind of said that you both found that out kind of along the way. Like, I don't think, unless you were maybe secretly he's like, oh, this person does that, I like to do that too, maybe that's why you took an interest. But it's always nice to be able to have someone that's supportive and encouraging, but then also doing the same thing. You become complements to each other even further, right? And that's what really stood out for me when I first saw you guys and the content you were creating, because I think it just made it made it appeal just natural. Whereas sometimes if you are trying to find someone else to create content with, if they're not really in that vibe or in that style, well, then it's kind of forced, it's not natural, people are uncomfortable. It would probably be a bit different if maybe Ellena, like, you weren't interested in doing this, and if Vince wants to get you in front of the camera, you're not really wanting to do it. And I said, that's an amazing perk and advantage that you guys have as small creators and just people kicking off a journey, which that, as I said it before, I'm totally intrigued by it. And I think it's something that you guys make sure you milk that as much as possible, because there's people out there that would I guess I wouldn't say kill, but would love to have that opportunity. So that's great. And I must ask, so how long have you guys been dating?
We have been dating for 6 years now.
Officially, yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's awesome. And time flies when you're having fun, right? And it's good to hear it. And I know you guys have created, and for anyone that's listening and watching, is go check out their socials and their YouTube, because you guys have created a lot of content around your I guess self-development within your relationship, journeying together. And it's always very cute and very sweet as well. But I think it's encouraging for others just to see. Not everyone likes to share that, but it comes back to that storytelling once again that you guys are creating and sharing an experience together. So it's really nice, and it's inspiring for others. So that's what sucked me in terms of seeing the quality that I liked there. So that's really good. The other question I wanted to kind of just ask about, the stuff that you're creating just as a couple, what do other people think about that? I think it'd be nice to hear, for others that are, maybe doing the same thing, or maybe they've got significant others that are also, maybe in the same situation as you guys. how do you find that other people react to it?
Other people are pretty intrigued by like what we do, and a lot of the questions would be like, oh my gosh, like how do you guys like manage to do this with each other? Because like I think it's very rare. Like, I mean, yes, like, like you see couples working together doing creative things, but it's more of like the cutesy kind of like the pretty picture type of stuff, which of course, like we love to do. But like you said, like it just kind of came more naturally, and we just kind of discovered like each other's interests along the way. So with that, my answer would be communication is key. Like, yes, we work together, but him and I clearly have, different interests. Like, so for example, like, he does his behind the scenes things with other creators, and he does photography. I'm not a photographer. Like, yes, like we share the same thing in common. Like, we do videos and we carry a camera around, but I'm kind of more of the how would I say, like the inspirational, intentional type of content. And yes, we do like the fashion videos and like the fashion clothing and stuff like that. But yeah, our intentions are just really different. But then when we come together, it's kind of like, all right, we'll balance. We're gonna do your content today, and then the next day we'll plan to do your content, and then we'll kind of find similarities to kind of work together and collaborate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a beautiful answer. I don't know. And, I've always called you guys the dream team because the way you guys interact and how you've just described that, obviously I don't see that because that's all the stuff in the making of the content that you create. But it just goes to show that, you're literally, it's like, two peas in a pod, or, peanut butter and jelly, right? They connect with each other and work together very well. And I think, as I said before, that's something which is a great advantage that you both have. I mean, Vince, do you have anything to add to that? Have you had anyone say anything in particular?
To be honest, it's hard to tell. I know we all have social media. We just post what we create, but I haven't had anyone personally that actually like talks about what me and Ellena do. Together, at least. I know they've talked about some of the work just like a big picture. So I don't think they are, at least on my end, too interested, but they seem interested. But then again, like, it's hard to tell. But I think for the most part, for people that do follow us and that do support us, they love the content from the reactions that I get.
Because to us, like, it's more, the reason why we do these things together is not just to, post pretty content or like have like pretty, like to fill up your Instagram feed. It's just, it means a lot like when someone actually sees that the work that we do is very intentional and that it really reflects like our individual personalities and shows our authenticity, of course.
And I think that's a great answer, right? And like, to Vince, to your point, I don't think people need to be saying stuff. It was more of curiosity. But I think, if anything, the content that you create, it really starts to reflect, I guess, your styles, or it's evident that, there's, maybe it's done by you, Vince, or maybe it's done by you, Ellena. But I think that's something in the longer term, which I think will really start to stand out even at greater lengths for you both, is because it starts to become a bit of your brand, which is awesome. I mean, let's dabble a bit deeper now. So for those listening, it would be great to be able to hear, like, what are some of the things you love to create? And even if you want to talk about, how you got into it or why you like to create, but at the same time, what are the things that you do like to create?
So I guess I'll start off like how I got into it. Honestly, it's a vague memory, but when, your parents ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? And the first thing I said was be a director, and I have no idea why I said that. I guess it just clicked to me. Fast forward to 10 years old, I carried, one of those big cameras when I first visited our homeland in the Philippines, and I see all the old footage. I don't remember it, but I see the tapes that my family keeps. And then ever since then, I've just been intrigued by it. Of course, with TV shows, movies, YouTube, and all that stuff, I was just all inspired by it, and I've just been fascinated with the technical side and the camera equipment, just in all of content creating. And then everything is just self-taught, mostly through YouTube. And I get my inspirations, I guess, through the people I watch on YouTube. I've watched a lot of YouTube throughout my life, but I also found a lot of inspiration. That's when, when I was throughout my life, when I've been in, dark places, I always go to it, and the creators that were on there, just brought me back to a happier place, and also brought me more motivation, inspiration to life. And I think that's what influenced me to create my own stuff. I know there's like travel bloggers out there, there's people that do challenges or crazy stuff, but I want to see, for me, my goal is to show the people, the viewers, the audience, what they don't see into the making of, how much work goes into producing videos, producing photos, etc., etc. And I think that's what a lot of people are seeing now because of TikTok and all that stuff. People love behind the scenes stuff, but I wanna actually go deeper and just not just have quick stuff. And I know most of everything is shifted to fast attention. I know there's like different platforms to and I think what got me and what can inspire most people that want to create content with their phones most of the time is actually watching long formatted videos of how everything's done, and then hopefully take their twist on it and be inspired to do other stuff.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's brilliant, Ed. I've got a quick question I want to ask you from just that first part that you mentioned around watching other YouTubers or other creators. So what's one or two, or if you've got a top three of creators that have inspired you that you've always gone to or looked to?
So a few that I can mention are they're travel vloggers, but they're now, I guess you can call them influencers. But one is Will Dasovich. He's a Filipino vlogger, all the way in the Philippines. I've been watching him for a long time. And then another would be, a big influence would be Lost LeBlanc. He's also another travel vlogger where I would watch both their contents in my early days of creating, and that's where most of my inspiration would go. So that's where they are. It would be nice to get to at one point in my life, or at least experience a couple of times.
No, I mean, they're both great, amazing content creators. I've watched them for ages, actually. I remember watching Lost LeBlanc since Jeepers, maybe when he was at like 15,000 subscribers or less, and then just watch him rise has been an amazing journey. And even for the Dasovich twins, actually, I've watched them both for so long, right? They both create such amazing, Will obviously now is in way past 1 million, and I think Haley's still, mid 100,000s, but their content that they create, it's a lot of fun, and I find it relatable, and it's encouraging as well, because it just goes to show that anyone can do it. It's great to hear the same inspiration is there, because I see it both in you too, and in the type of content that you're creating. So, and the other question I wanted to ask you, Vince, just before we jump to Ellena, is you've mentioned around behind the scenes kind of stuff that you love to create. And whether it's you're still figuring out, you do like the long form stuff, but at the moment everyone's doing short form, and everyone wants this quick attention or quick value. So what, I guess you be you, but what is, if you were going out to create something this weekend, how would you create, or what would that be? And it doesn't have to be a very detailed answer, but I think it would just be nice to hear from you, for anyone that's listening, of like, if you were going out to shoot something this weekend, what would be the ideal thing you'd like to do?
Ideal thing would just be, honestly, just going outside of my, just anywhere in my house, and just taking my camera around, vlogging the whole day. Of course, you can go into post-production, cut whatever you want, but just film the whole day, because all those videos, it's not about like how cool your day is. It's just enjoying your day. And I feel like if people will resonate with you, they'll follow you, and then you make your long form video, you can cut all the cool highlights, make it in short formatted videos. So there's a bunch of stuff that can be created by it that I've learned in the past, and also from what Gary Vee said. You can make so many content off of one long formatted video. But honestly, just film. For me, it's just to film my whole day. If it's with friends, if it was Ellena, if it's by myself, skating, going to the gym, doing water activities at the beach, anything like that.
Yeah, so really just documenting, which I think you've kind of, you've already stated that. So really documenting, but obviously you're creating, but you like to just bring it along and share what you're doing. And then I think that's an awesome point for people to hear, is that, then you can create from that documentation, right? Because you've got, whether it's, I went to the gym today, I can share something that I did, or you filmed something which, you thought might inspire someone, but because you've been filming, you've got content which is documented that enables you to then create something from it, right?
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, I think it's good we're at a point in the world where we can actually see, like when we get older, we can see our memories in a different way other than just photos and telling stories. Those are nice too, but we have the technology to actually relive those things when we can tell it to our kids, grandkids, when you get super old and you can't remember. Stuff like that.
So, Ellena, there's been a lot there that Avince has said, right? But, apart from you complimenting Avince, we're helping out with whether it's the modeling or just being in front of the camera, or, within the videos, I think something which the audience doesn't know yet is, you do have a blog, and you're also got, some creative talents and areas of focus that you enjoy to do. And I would love to hear, you can talk about the, whether it is the modeling or the videography or, being in front of the camera. But what else are you working on, or what areas do you like to, bring to life?
Okay. I could start from the beginning on how all the creative juices started flowing, if you don't mind. Okay, so for me, how I started getting in front of the camera. So I've always been someone who's been honestly really shy, and I would as much as I would like to be behind the camera, I would I would want to strive away from it, to be completely honest, how I started off. And I know I'm mostly in front, with the events and everything, but it took a lot to get me to do that. And honestly, it literally took it was honestly a year or two ago how I started getting more comfortable, and I'm still working on that. So for me, it started off with, I was working at a frozen yogurt shop, and I had a coworker who is now one of my really good friends, and she, little did I know, she was a local photographer, or at least she was trying to build her creative juices off of her hobby. And so one day, we were just talking, and she was just would you like to be one of my models, to do photography with me? And of course, I was kind of taken aback by it. I was flattered that she asked me, but I was just kind of I don't really get in front of the camera like that, but sure, we can create something together, because deep down inside, I did want to do that. I haven't built up the confidence to do so yet. So her and I did our first photo shoot together. It was so funny because looking back at those photos, I felt so awkward in them, but whatever, it is what it is. Nobody knows that I felt that way. So then I started doing more photo shoots with her to help her build her portfolio and everything. And Avince doing video and everything, he was just kind of someone should actually be behind the scenes, documenting the process of Kimmy's photo shoots and everything. And or he was also wanting to dabble into photography too, and working himself up to that point. So he was just hey, you should model for me. And I thought, it's kind of funny because I didn't want to. I was just kind of
wow.
Yeah, I was just kind of I don't know, because I'm not used to getting in front of the camera like that, with my boyfriend. I don't know. I guess I was just kind of silly about that. But so we were just all right, let's try it, and just what the heck. So I started getting into fashion, and I ordered like a bunch of clothes for fun, and then Vince was like, all right, like let's do like a fashion video. And you know, him being a boy and all, he didn't really understand the concept of like lookbook girl fashion videos. So I kind of had to like explain like my vision and what I wanted. And when we first went into it, I believe we took like a weekend trip or a vacation to Orlando, and he was just like, all right, like just get in front of the camera. And I was just kind of like, okay, like what am I supposed to be doing? And that's kind of like where I'm gonna address that communication really is key, because I guess like events just assumed that like, you know, like I was just gonna like, you know, pose and model and get all like, you know, look nice in front of the camera. But I was just kind of like, well, you're the director, like you should kind of like assemble me or like help me of like what to
Full
do.
disclosure here. It was one of my earlier times with actually working with a model or a subject.
Yeah,
So
no. Like
I
it again, it's all just the beginning, the learning process. Like we both like we did not know like what we were doing. We wanted to create something. We wanted to make something cool. We just having the different interests. We just tried to figure out how we're gonna do this like together.
Yeah, and just before you continue, so this is great, right? And I think, you know, for anyone that's listening, is you've kind of just said it really, really well in terms of, you know, you guys were just starting and figuring it out, and you had no idea what you're doing, and you know, around the communication, obviously that works better. Well, you know, you being boyfriend and girlfriend, but I think, you know, even in the role as a model and someone who's a photographer, is, you know, making sure that communication is clear. But I think one thing which I think is really, really, you know, important for people to hear here is that, so when it comes to you, you guys have kind of just taken action, and you know, there's this expectation in your minds, or you know, of what you think it's going to look like. But of course you have to
For sure.
do that, right? And you know, maybe
Yeah.
you just assumes that, oh well, you know, Vince, you've said just get in front of the camera and everything was just going to fall into place. But you know, you don't know what you're meant to be doing, or you're not sure how it's meant to be happening. So I think this is a very key piece of insight for people to understand that, you know, as much as when it comes to, you know, if you've got something that you want to be doing, you need to just get out and do it. It's not going to be perfect, right? And I think that's what scares us the most, is because we step out to do something, and it's not what we expected. It's, you know, expectation versus reality. And then that's what then hinders us to move forward with it, because we think, oh well, no one's going to like this. But if you don't start, it can never change,
Right.
right? So I think I just wanted to really make that very vocal, because that's very clear what you guys have kind of said. You know, I mean, I would never have thought, you know, you were being camera shy, Ellena, because you know, you don't come across that way, right? And I mean, who am I to say that, you know, of course, you know, maybe you're still nervous in front of the camera, but that's why I was, you know, intrigued when I first saw the content you guys were creating, is because it comes across as so natural. It's like, whoa, how do you guys make this just work so smoothly, right? And but now we've just heard it, right? It hasn't always been like that, and it takes the hard work. It takes probably retries and that communication. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
yeah.
lots of trial and error for sure.
Especially if it's your significant other, there's gonna be a lot of head bumps, arguments, disagreements.
Yeah, it's like the amount of like disagreements that we've got into are like so silly. Like we'll look back on it and be like, oh well, like you didn't take the angle right, or like maybe you should like do this, or like my camera work, like I don't know, like all this stuff.
Yeah,
Like I don't have the right lens or whatever.
But you like the final product.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, lots of trial and error. Like, we just, like you said, we just kept taking action, kept practicing, doing it over and over again. And we're a lot better at, like, communicating. And it also helped our relationship a lot, not in terms of, like, you know, just making content, but it taught us a lot on how to communicate with each other.
If you're going to do it, if you've got any, whether it doesn't even have to be photography, right? It doesn't even have to be anything that you guys are doing, but anyone that has the intention to try something and to create something, the only way to do it is to keep going at it, to keep, you know, learning better, making the mistakes, trial and error, whether you're doing it with someone else or not. If it's not out there, you can't adapt, you can't pivot, you can't change, you can't adjust, or you can't learn. So that's the beauty of it, is once it's out there, you iterate and you go back and you tweak it and make it a bit better, or you don't even have to, you just keep doing it, and that sometimes comes natural as well, which is very evident with you guys. Well, that's really cool, guys. I mean,
On like a little tangent about like us, but
no, it's good, and I think it's important for people to hear it, right? And I had mentioned that with your modeling, and you have a camera shine, and you stand out, right? But I know at the same time, that's only one thing that you're passionate about, and you have all these other things which you're probably using the content for to actually further those areas that you're building out as well. And I think, with using each other's talents, that's what's so, I guess, special with, the dynamic duo that you guys have created, or the dream team. And I want people to be able to hear that, well, you've got those creative areas that you guys are doing together, but then there's more, right? And you have the blog, and, well, I mean, we haven't even spoken about the blog, so over to you. Go for it.
after doing the fashion videos and the modeling and the photos were all great and everything, and I still love to do that, like they're my interests, but I kind of like had like a little self-reflection last year, because yes, they were fun and everything, but it wasn't, creating just that type of content was not fulfilling me, because I've always been someone like who has so much to say, and like I really want to give like inspirational lifestyle genuine value to like help other people. Like, yes, like posting my photos are nice, but I don't want people to just look at, like my face. Like, I want people to concentrate on my intellect and like my mindset, and like what's, not just on the outside, but like what's on the inside too. And I've been kind of trying to shift back and forth on like balancing both. But for right now, like my intellect has kind of been triumphing the all of the modeling and the photos and stuff. So that's kind of how my blog was made. So I already had the content for the blog, like, because we've been taking all these photos, making all these videos and stuff, so it's kind of like, okay, let me use that to help bring to life my blog, so I don't have to do the extra work of like making all this imagery and stuff. So I would kind of try to sit back and look at my photos and be like, all right, like what do these like resemble? And honestly, like the beginning of me trying to piece my photos together was when you actually reached out to us and we did the bold content, because we took photos with the bold shirt, and then I sat back and like when you asked me all of those like the top 5 questions that like everyone should ask themselves, I was like, oh, like this is really good. And it got me to really sit down and think and ask myself all of these questions for my intentions, like why am I doing this? What do I want to do? What am I passionate about? And after answering all of those, it inspired me to want to create more blogs and stuff like that. So I just wanted to create a creative space that had everything on it. Like the photos, the videos, the inspirational quotes, all of that cool stuff. And that's how the blog was made.
And the name of the blog is?
Living with EllenaGrace.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's a journey, right? And it's not as easy as it looks. And I think that's a very key thing that we've been talking about, whether it's the content creation, going out, taking pictures. Sure, you can do that. Anyone can take a picture, but then there's, what's the intention of the picture? Is it just to, show I look good? Or as you said, is there something a bit more deep and meaningful behind that? And having the intention of creating content that will maybe capture someone, but then to dig that little deeper, and whether it is about talking about being bold, or taking the next step, or whatever it may be. And I know it's a very saturated area, especially on Instagram, right? Where we see people creating content, and that's what everyone's doing as a influencer as such. And what I think is special about it is, you separating, moving it out and taking it to the blog with the intention of, well, what do you want to build out here, right? And and maybe you can kind of, I think you've got some key words around what that what the blog represents. What are the key words of the intention around the blog?
The keywords that my blog represents is giving genuine value and sharing positive insight, whether that's in terms of lifestyle. Well, yeah, in terms of lifestyle, like how I live my life. That's why I call it living with Ellena Grace. But putting that out there to inspire other people to live the way that they want.
Which once again comes back to that documenting piece, right? Because you're not necessarily going out to create something to necessarily say this is what you need to be thinking about, but you're actually trying to make it more like, well, this is what I did, and this is what I learned, and this is what I want to share. And I think that is what makes the difference, because anyone can go post a picture and it looks great, it looks cool, and you can put a caption, but sometimes it is just for the sake of it. And building out a blog because creating a blog is no easy feat, right? Like, there's sitting down, going through it, understanding, making sure it flows, and it is actually telling the story or creating the intent that you want it to have. So it's a lot of hard work. And I mean, I've obviously read a lot of your blogs as well, and I encourage anyone that's listening or watching to go check that out. And all this will be in the show notes and the description below. But that's it's a beautiful piece that you're creating. And I think, as I've mentioned before, the two of you doing the types of content that you're creating, it really does help each other thrive further. And one area that I wanted to kind of touch on in this entire episode for everyone is that we're talking about ambition, we're talking about talent, we're talking about creativity between the both of you. And it's awesome to see and follow. But I think what will be very key for people to hear is what's the goal here, what's the plan, and what's the vision. And I know between the two of you, you both have things together that you want to achieve, but then individually as well, you both have focuses or current goals that you're working towards. And maybe we can start to touch on that, because for everyone's understanding that you guys are in the early days of building out where you want to be for your future. You've got amazing content, you've got YouTube channel, you've got Instagram, you've got all the different things that you're creating, which is, I mean, it's great content. And for me, looking inwards, it looks like it's something that, is that you've been doing it for years and years and years, which you have, but it's not at the point where it's necessarily, making you money for a living or anything like that. But I think what will be really good to hear is, well, for two juniors or two young guns, starting out and wanting to take that journey, is what is the current focus? And you can either answer individually first, or if together, or however you want to answer it. But what is your current focus, and what are you currently working towards?
For me personally, my goal and what I'm working towards is to get myself to to get myself to have my voice be heard, and just putting things out there, and really trying to concentrate on putting things out rather than having to overthink it too much and have this perfection persona, and to just honestly creatively express myself. And because I feel like when I creatively express myself, I get that weight off of my shoulders, instead of just building it all up in your mind and just having those creative ideas just sit there. And also being able to share with other people and have that intention to possibly inspire somebody else to chase after their dreams or their passions.
So what's one way that you're making this happen, right? Because there's a lot there, and there's a lot of ambition, and I think to give people clarity and to keep yourself honest and everyone honest, is it's great to have ambition and have all these visions and goals, and this is what I'm going to do. But you don't have all the answers, right? Because you haven't gotten to where you want to be yet. But what's one thing that you're doing to work towards that focus, or to work towards that progression?
What I am doing to work towards that goal is reminding myself of my core values. And I am a strong believer of that in terms of anybody who wants to, aspiring to be a creator or create in some way, because I feel like when you reflect on your core values, that is your compass to who you truly are. And it's coming from a place that is purely authentic. So if I remind myself that, like, I wrote a blog post about this actually, or I started doing like a project called the Core Values Project, which is my top 5 core values are authenticity, empathy, genuine connection, family, and service. So when I remind myself of those things, it's kind of like authenticity. Okay, like this is how I want to portray myself. Empathy, to be able to engage in other people's lifestyles and other people's journeys. Genuine connection, building a community or meeting like-minded creators like yourself. Family, to keep you grounded. And then service, like how can I help and serve other people? So just kind of like reflecting on those just kind of shifts my focus to, it reminds me of my why and my purpose and why I'm even doing this to begin with.
I mean, it's really deep, right? And I think that's important for people to hear because, and people don't have to necessarily have the same thing that you've just mentioned to be able to progress, but it's always great to be able to understand, well, how are you doing it? And also, I mean, you kind of answered it, is why, right? And understanding your purpose and why you're trying to do it. And it's good to hear it from, the whole intent is to hear it from just another everyday person, right? And I guess one other thing then is, so what's stopping you from progressing at the moment? What's something that you've struggled with or are struggling with to, I guess, to gain momentum or to move forward?
Straight up, what's stopping me from progressing is getting lost in perfection. Pressuring myself to find a niche because I'm someone who's very interested in many different things. Like I love I started off with like fashion and modeling, and then I love also daily vlogging. I'm a psychology major, so I'm interested in, mental health and helping children. And then I'm also into music and stuff. And then there's like the lifestyle inspirational content. So it's like all of these things. And like as a creator, especially if you're a young, aspiring one, like just starting from the beginning, it's just kind of like, okay, like what do I focus on? Like you have all of these different talents and ideas, but you're just kind of like, where do I start? And it gets overwhelming thinking about that. But it's just kind of like, well, why don't you just do all of them? Like just express yourself like in any shape or form. Like what do you feel like doing today? Like one day I'll feel like writing a blog, another day I'll feel like modeling or taking a photo, like the list goes on, like etc etc. So but just practicing more self-awareness and just overall growth. I realized that I shouldn't put so much pressure on myself to try to narrow things down or concentrate too much on the aesthetics or worrying about like what other people would think about it or if they're even gonna like it. So yeah, I feel like that's what was withholding these great ideas from not being put out. But you check yourself and you just say, hey, like just do it. Just try.
Yeah. I mean, I look, we all struggle with it, and thank you for sharing that because sometimes it's hard to, to speak it out, and I think a lot of the time we all know things that are stopping us, and sometimes it's great to be able to chat with other people, and that's why I wanted to ask, because for anyone that's listening and that are thinking about starting, they need to hear that they'll experience this too as well. The perfection thing, what will people think? But also it's very overwhelming trying to jump into a space that everyone's trying to jump into of, creating, I want to do this, or lifestyle. And it's very saturated. But the good thing is that, we're all weird and wonderful and we're all unique, and how you do you, that's fine because you've got no one else to compare to. I know, yes, we've got the whole world to compare to, but at the end of the day, these people that are, that are inspiring you or influencing you, they started exactly the same spot that you did. They had to tread their own path. They had to create their own space. They had to create whatever they're doing around them, whether it is the travel or whether it's people that are skateboarding or whether it's people that are just building out their art journey, right? So I think it's very important that we hear this. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Remember.
So Vince, so let's ask you the same stuff, right? So we're talking about goals and what's the plan and vision. So for you, what's your current focus? And it doesn't have to be long term; it can be just your current focus. And what are you trying to work towards?
So my current focus right now is to be able to have a balanced workflow between my creative space and of course my my responsibilities, my priorities and stuff like that. So I want things that I'm trying to do is, of course, everyone when they first start out, like us, we have our primary jobs, our responsibilities, our duties, and if something that you don't like in your primary job, you have to tell. If you have the, I believe every workplace should have the option to be able to, to come to your supervisor and say, hey, this is not working out, but I don't want to leave the company. I don't want to leave this job. I like this job. So what I'm trying to do to get to that goal, I already came to, my supervisor. I said, hey, my current situation right now is not really working out with, my mental health, my physical health. I just don't feel right, So I brought that issue up to them, and they were cool about it. They genuinely care about their employees. So fast forward, how long has it been? Like 8 months later, I finally got a new position, and I feel like that's going to unlock this path for me to get to that goal of having a balance, between my creative space and my responsibilities. And the end goal would be to be able to, of course, leave the 9-to-5 job like everybody else, be my own boss, etc., etc. The whole mumbo jumbo kind of stuff. So.
Okay. Yep. So let's touch on that a little bit. And I think you've said some great things, which I think is become even more relevant for people in the in the last year or so, especially with the big C, COVID. Everyone's had to everyone's been thrown up and turned upside down, and we've all had to work and do things in different way. And you mentioned mental health, right, and physical health too. And I think kudos for getting out there and having that conversation, because it is a hard conversation to have with yourself, let alone with others, and identifying it and trying to bring the right attention to it. So that's really, really good of you to do. So you mentioned around, balancing, priorities, whether it's work and, just life in general, and then around your balancing of, your passions and, doing your creative stuff. So I guess in terms of then creative side, what's one area creatively that, so let's say your balance is perfect and you're able to do your creation time. What are you focusing on and what are you working towards in the creative space?
So that's a good question. So what I'm trying to work on is to better tell a story, which is, through my if it has telling a better story through my vlogging, telling a better story through maybe my clientele work or anything like that, or maybe even telling a story through photography. I know everyone loves that, and it's once you get more into that niche of whatever you're passionate about, you start to see that it's more what everyone's passionate about. It's more of a creative art work, whether it's for us, photography, blog, or construction, engineering, anything like that. So I think right now is just I have all the equipment I need. I have an addiction to buying more equipment that I don't need, but I just like it. But the priority right now is just to tell a better story through my work.
Okay. And I think that's a good thing, because there's actually enough depth there to make you challenge yourself and have to do a lot of things, but also it's very small, and it can be just as simple as just doing it more, right, or getting out there and telling the story more, right? So that's really, really good, right? So what's one way that you are making this happen? So what's a small example or something that you're doing to actually get closer to this?
So one thing I'm doing is when I'm actually making the vlogs and having everything, on my SSD drives and stuff like that, I sit down in front of the camera. I don't know what got me into it, but it was just like that urge just to create, and just me getting in front of the camera, telling what happened in the vlog, you know, having all these segments and just seeing myself progress with public speaking or anything like that, and just helping to tell a better story, as I was trying to say.
So you're kind of doing the voiceover. But it's also at the same time you're doing the voiceover to tell the story of what's in the vlog, but at the same time you're also challenging yourself to talk more in front of the camera. So it's kind of like a double whammy. So you're being able to grow and push yourself, because if you don't do that, you're not going to actually be able to complete the vlog or the style of vlog that you wanted to create. So that's really good, right? And I think setting those kind of challenges in the way that you've done it is a really unique way to be able to get out and start, right? Whether it's doing one thing every day, like a picture a day, but how you've kind of said it is, you know, you're saying, well, this is the style I want to do my vlog, so this is the way I'm going to do it. And it challenges you, but you're only going to get more comfortable as you do it.
And I think for me, you can call it daily vlogging, but it's just me carrying my camera around and just talking about my day. And then when it comes to post-production, just choosing what I want to see in the future. And then, of course, telling a story for me, actually getting in front of the camera and just talking about it. And I just feel like when I'm going to look back at these like first 100 vlogs, I'm just going to laugh, and then, you know, my family could laugh along with me.
Okay, so then what's actually stopping you from progressing? What's something, one thing, two things, whatever you want to share? What's stopping you from progressing or making that progress?
I think the main thing is just time. So the only thing that's stopping me is my time for creative work, because I know everyone is creative at different times of the day, and there shouldn't be excuses of, you know, if you're lazy to get your creative work out. But it's just I know I shouldn't be making excuses, but it's just like, you know, work is the responsibility and the priorities, and then we also have our, you know, passion projects and all that stuff. So I think the only thing is just, one, the work life, two, the inevitable feeling of being lazy after work,
which is, I think everyone experiences, and it is probably a lot deeper there, and it's probably something to just challenge everyone with, right? Is when it comes to that, and you might have an answer, or maybe you can relate to it, but I think it then comes down to the overwhelmment of what you're trying to achieve is not big, and I mean not small enough, or I guess maintainable in the time you do have, right?
right?
So, you know, because the question would be that if you have all the time in the world, would you actually be doing exactly what you're saying, right? Which I know it's a catch-22, which you wouldn't know until you experience that. But I think, you know, it's very true. We use a lot of things as excuses and priorities and whatnot. But at the same time, you also mentioned around mental health and physical health, right? So I think these are very key things that everyone needs to take in mind, that, you know, when trying to create something, build out a side hustle or create a new lifestyle or pursue passion, is it comes with it a lot of a lot of work, right? And that's because you are living life, you are trying to, you know, survive, make some money doing your 9 to 5, but at the same time, then you want to create something for the longer term, and trying to put in that same amount of effort, which is just being drained all day at work. It's not as easy as it looks, right? So I think it's something which, you know, we should all be encouraged by, that, you know, not to be so hard on ourselves, but also to find the small things that can enable us to take the step forward. You know, and for you, it might be just, even if your daily vlog is something as, you know, maybe you're not going to be able to create every day, but you can still create a video that is 60 seconds, and it literally takes you 60 seconds. So I think it also comes down to, you know, probably a bit what Ellena said as well around, you know, perfection and what are we trying to achieve and what does it look like? Because no progression is lost opportunity, whereas something that might be 50% that could be your best is actually better progression than nothing at all. So I think this is, I mean, I struggle with it as well. I think we all struggle with this, and it's something which is reality of going through this journey of trying to create something. And it's just one of the pressures, or something that can stop us from progressing. So thank you for sharing that.
If I could add something to that, I also think that the key is also balance as well. Like just trying to balance like the different aspects of your lifestyle. And also something that could rejuvenate, and this is me giving myself my own advice. Just before doing something for your boss, try to do something for yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And just also practicing gratitude too. That's something that actually helps me a lot. Like like for example, like for instance, like I'm working from home, but at least I'm working from home and I have like access to like my workspace, or like I can, like whenever I do my break, I can just go to my little creative area. Just kind of like attuning yourself into being grateful for like what you do have and trying to help yourself find that balance amongst priorities and your passions.
The gratitude point is very clear, and I think it's something we can all do, and we can all do it better. Is because sometimes, as you said as well, Vince, that you come home, you're exhausted, it's been a long day, and you don't necessarily have the mind space and all that jazz, or your creative time is more in the morning or whatever. Yes, they might sound like excuses, but at the same, they're workflow. But something that I think that will enable you to grow, and all of us, is having that gratitude of like, well, what have I achieved today? And maybe it's not something which you thought it was going to be, but maybe it's like, oh well, I did this at work and I was able to achieve that, which is actually still a growth. And it might not be towards your lifestyle change or your hustle or whatever, but it's something which is actually positive. Because the last thing you want to be doing is coming home from something and then feeling, I guess, annoyed by it or frustrated by it, which then it's only going to get you into a mood where you're not going to be creative as well. So it having that mindset of like, well, maybe I'm not going to get to work on this today, my side hustle, but I have accomplished this, which actually was, something that I've been able to learn from or grow from as a personal or individual. So I think doing that, but then also finding those small bites that can help you progress with the side hustle, as whether it might mean maybe you've just done some research, or maybe you practice speaking in front of the camera, or they can be small things that you can do, or maybe it's just writing in a journal or writing out a blog. Because once again, those small things are daily progression, right? And I mean, if anyone that's listening, and for both of you as well, the book, I think it's from James Clear, Atomic Habits, they're just small things every day over a long period of time, and it gets that 1% growth, right? And then eventually something changes, because all of a sudden now you've done it for so long, you're starting to master it. So, and obviously there's a lot more to it than just that. And I encourage anyone to go read that book or listen to that audio book. But it's about, I think, being able to reflect on the things that you have achieved will enable you to grow and continue with that motivation. So very good point there. Cool. So thanks for sharing that, guys. I mean, there's so much meat and so much that I'm taking away from this. And the next thing that I want to kind of get into is a segment that I'm introducing to the podcast, which I want to try and do with all the guests, is some rapid fire questions. And the intent of these is kind of not to give, to throw anyone off, but just some random questions that I think as an audience or someone else might be intrigued to hear or learn or understand. And they'll probably change as I do different guests as well. But I've picked out a couple for you guys, and you can either both answer them individually or answer them as one, as as a couple. But the first question that I have for you guys is, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do?
I would definitely be traveling across the world to many different countries with the intent of getting involved with mission projects and helping underprivileged children. I have never traveled much. I honestly literally just got on a plane last year. I've never left the country, more so, or until last year, left the East Coast. So I would just love to learn about more different cultures and just seeing different aspects of the world, sharing my insight and genuine value and intentions.
Honestly, that is a good question, because I haven't really thought about it. I know money is a big part of everybody's lives, and it's different for everyone. I think if money wasn't an issue, I would just be getting as much experience on this planet as possible, whether it's, you know, sharing experiences with other people, with other cultures, doing just trying to live life to the fullest. I don't think like, you know, I don't think anything materialistic. So of course, if money was never a thing, then I could obviously spend time with loved ones, her, and just for me the goal is just to experience as much as we can on this, you know, with all the time that we have.
The next one that I have for you guys is, and either do individually or as a couple, is a favorite book that you have read.
I actually have it right here, hands down. I would recommend this one. It's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. There's actually a movie about this too, and it's about creative living beyond fear. So I would definitely recommend this for aspiring creators, or honestly, I take that back, like anyone in general who just wants to live a more creative lifestyle, whether that's chasing after your passions or diving into something that you've always aspired to do, or just giving your life a little bit more vivid color in terms of just, you know, living the day-to-day, working, living comfortably. It kind of like gets you to live with, or think to live more intentionally and create intentionally too.
My favorite book, I think one hands down would be Think and Grow Rich. I forgot the author. I think it's by Napoleon Hill, but I'm not sure. I read it a few years ago, and that was, I know it sounds like it's a financial book, but it's actually more of a mindset book. And that book actually helped me, you know, shift my mind away from, oh, I'm a high school grad and, you know, I got to go to college, blah, blah, blah. And it just got me into a different mindset of bursting out of that bubble and being a lot more curious in other aspects of the world and other aspects of her mind. And that actually made me more curious about, like, you know, all the books that she has been reading, because I read a couple of her books. So I think it's good for, you know, your personal growth and your creative curiosity about the world.
The next question that I have for you guys is, you know, what are your favorite hobbies or things to do in your free time or when you're resting? And it can be as a couple or individually once again.
For me, I definitely love to spend quality time with my loved ones, my family, him, of course, and just living it up, living in the present. And in terms of myself, I love to read. I love feeding my mind with knowledge and doing yoga and meditating to kind of get your mindset to be still and practice the power of now and presence, and just to kind of calm your mind down and just to get back in touch with yourself.
I think for me, for I guess our hobbies, I could speak on the behalf of both of us. We like to, she picked it up recently. We like to go on like little skating sessions. We both got cruising boards, longboards. We don't do any of the fancy skateboarding tricks, unfortunately. So sorry about, you know, the skaters out there. But on my own, I like to play games just like any other guy or any other girl would do. And I just like to, when I'm playing games, I like to escape from, you know, my reality and kick it with some of the homies that I'm playing with. So other than that, I enjoy being with loved ones as well, friends, her family, and just having different experiences and creating memories together.
I think some golden nuggets there, and I encourage anyone that has just heard this, go check out what you guys are doing, because I think you start to share it and show it more and more as you've been progressing with your content. So that's really cool. That's really good. Thank you for sharing those. All right, so look, we've had an amazing, it's been an amazing episode and having you guys on, and we've discussed on so many different things, right? And I think what I want to encourage everyone from hearing all this is, what has stood out to them, right? And for me, it has been just the everyday things, because you guys are just everyday people. You're not celebrities, you're not, influencers, but you do influence other people and you are inspiring other people. And I think it's been great to be able to hear just, the day-to-day things, whether it's the challenges that you have, or the things of how you're progressing forward. And you really are in the early days of, what you're trying to go out and create. And it is about a lifestyle and, being able to make that happen. So it's great to be able to have that perspective on, someone that is kickstarting their journey, and even cooler because you guys are obviously a couple and doing it together, and seeing that progress of how you're doing it onwards and upwards. It's inspiring and it's encouraging, and I'm hoping that everyone else would agree with that. So I think before we finish up, the one thing that I kind of want to give you guys the opportunity for is, what's one thing that, whether once again, if it's individual or as a couple, that you would want to leave with the listeners, whether it's, something, it's a quote, or just if there was one thing that you wanted them to take away from this and that you guys have shared, what would that be?
I actually pulled this from my blog. If I could read like this short paragraph, so you don't mind. If you feel called to do something, don't be afraid to take action toward it, because everyone else will see you as someone who's different. If there's something about yourself that you can use to your advantage to get others to better connect with you, each other, or even the world, then execute it. Because our world needs more people like that. So just start with what you know and then determine what speaks to you. Find ways to encourage yourself as much as you can until you finally get that nagging feeling out of you, and just make sure that it is aligned with purpose and your intentions.
They probably heard it a bunch of times, but don't let other people's opinion dictate to what you can put out there, because at the end of the day, your content's your content, and that's what makes everybody different. If they relate to you, if they like your content, then they'll follow. If they don't, that's okay too. Just put that stuff out there. We're in the time where we can actually look back at it when we are older, and that's all I care about. That's what I fear the most, just forgetting the good times, and I don't want to forget that.
It's great. It's really, really good, to leave us with that and to challenge us with. So thank you so much. So the last thing then is, so how can people connect with you? And all this will be obviously in the description below and in the show notes if you're listening on Spotify or wherever. But I want you guys to share it. Where is the best way to keep up to date with you individually, you both, whether it's on the blog or Instagram? What's the best way to follow along?
For me, you can follow me on Instagram at EllenaGrace. You can find me on YouTube at EllenaGrace, and my blog, this famous blog that we keep talking about, is livingwithEllenaGrace.com.
Nice. And for me, the best way is Instagram. It's lost_AJB, and you can also find our well, at least my personal blogs, but then our videos on YouTube with it at Ellena and Avince.
Awesome. And of course, go check it out in the description below if you are watching on YouTube, and in the show notes, because you won't be disappointed. So thank you for sharing that, guys. Well, there you go. I mean, it's been an amazing session to hear from you guys, and just all the details and insights from both of you. I know I've learned a lot, and it's challenged me to think also on the level that, we are just everyday people. We're just another human just trying to, make their way and create something and, make their dent. And I think it's been encouraging to hear from you guys, of what you're doing, and just being at that early, that early start in what you want to achieve and conquer. And I have no doubt that you will. So it's been such a pleasure to have both of you here, and I'm looking forward to following along, and I know the listeners and watchers will be too. And down the track, I'll be so happy to have you both back, and of course individually as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Chris.
so much for having us.
It was a pleasure.
Well, there you go. Episode number 5 done and dusted, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have them both here on the podcast. I really do hope you've taken away something positive from this episode. I know I've been inspired and encouraged, and it's just great to be able to hear the amazing ambition and passion out of these two and what they're really going towards, right? And what they're chasing and pursuing. Of course, I really want to emphasize that you go check out their socials, whether it's on Instagram, check out their YouTube channel, and stay informed, stay up to date and see what they're going to be doing, because they are just getting started. And I know that their quality of content is only just the beginning. So make sure you do check it out. Check out all the show notes. There's plenty of resources down there as well. Really do appreciate you all being here. And of course, feedback is more than welcome. So if there was something that you enjoyed in this episode, or, if you want to have the conversation down in the comments, if you are watching on YouTube, or to reach out to me as well on the socials, let's have the conversation. Let's continue it. Let me know what you were inspired by. So excited to hear that too. Of course, my name's Chris Furlong. I'm the host of the Further Your Lifestyle podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure being here, and thank you for listening and spending the time. Until next time, cheers.